for this piece, we talked about the box. You know, when you make a rectangle, you can make a measured rectangle. When we did the square footages, so you can make a rectangle. And actually, I want to switch to a layer that actually is more colorful. Let's just go to layer 0 for right now. So let's make make active. Okay, so I'm on that layer and it's white. So I'm going to make a rectangle. And why is it red? That's so weird. Okay, let's go by layer. Yeah. Okay. Let's do that again. It doesn't show up on the screen up there. So. Okay. So yeah, make a rectangle, and you guys discovered that you could make a rectangle by the area or by like the dimensions and that kind of thing. So you could one way to start would be to actually start with your blocks given like a certain dimension. So let's say that the entire like floor plan of your thing, the entire floor plate of it might be roughly, if I do like D for dimensions, might be 200 wide by 100. So you could begin with that kind of envelope. Now again, that's not exactly your piece, but let's say that that's the rough dimension of it. So a technique you could do. I lost my thing here. Didn't finish the command. D. Yeah. Okay. So a technique that you could do is take that piece, that rough thing, and explode it. So explode, and that would give me the individual pieces of it. Okay. And let's say this is a rough outline of your building, and there's like there's a sort of like a double-loaded corridor, and on one side of it there's maybe some rooms, and they're like 25 feet deep, or they're like maybe 50 feet deep, and on the other side, and then there's a hallway that's like 10 foot, and then there are these rooms that are kind of left over. So you could use the offset command, and then you could say offset. Okay, maybe those rooms are 50 feet, and you could offset that. And then you have a hallway that's maybe 12 feet. And it gives you your hallway, and then that's going to start to give you that space. And then you could say like, well, there's actually a hallway that's like down. I need to change my snaps here. But you could find the kind of midpoint of your hallway and begin to. So let's say it's a quarter of the way. And kind of a trick I use is you can drop a line halfway and then do a diagonal line here. And then the midpoint of this line is actually going to give you a quarter. If you want to divide by quarters, you could, if you knew the dimensions, you could also offset this line to make your other hallway. So you could say the other hallway is like 33 feet in, let's say. So offset, or 30 feet. So offset 30 feet. Actually, that's not much. Bad scale. Offset 60 feet. Let's do twice the thing. And then that hallway is 12 foot too. So offset 12 feet. And then you can go in and trim these. And that roughly is going to begin, and that's going to begin to give you some schematics. You could go in and then you could say like, okay, so this is a room and it's so many feet wide, so I'm going to offset that by 50 feet.
Do you know what snaps you have set right now?
Mostly I just have midpoint and endpoint and then intersection. Actually, I don't need extension and like perpendicular. The one that's really dangerous is nearest, because that snaps to pretty much anything. Yeah, I hardly ever want to use that. And like apparent intersection is okay, but sometimes you want true intersection. So just be careful with that stuff. But okay, so for your schematic design, like a lot of you guys I think are at this point where like so that's one technique, is to take a shape and subdivide it and just use offset to kind of find the dimensions of things. And it's just about kind of like projecting things off each other. And this is actually good for circulation, right? Because it's like, let's say you take the whole volume of your building, and you kind of know what the rough volume of it is, but you don't know what your circulation is. You know the big volume, and you know the interior stuff. So what's left over might become what your hallways are. If your hallways are too small, you can begin to offset those, and then let that push out your like rooms. So you can work through that, and then again, the single line, since all you're doing is single lines, you're not doing thicknesses of walls and things. That's actually a really helpful way to kind of make your schematic design really rough. That's one technique. The other technique is that, let's say you've already got, well, one of many is that, let's say you've already got your building kind of planned. And this file is actually on Moodle, guys, if you want to actually like mess with Doug's file. I just kind of chose it because it has a lot of the stuff in here. But let's say, okay, so obviously this is parallel to the edge of the site. You know, there's, if you were diagramming this, that comes from somewhere. This thing is already actually angled. So let's just pretend. Let's take the site and just move it off somewhere. And then let's explode the site. So this is actually kind of like the last piece we did. Let's say your thing starts, you know, 50 feet from the inside of the site. So let's do offset 50 foot. And so I've got like a parallel line, okay? So you could begin to do something like that where and then you want to find like a perpendicular line. And in AutoCAD we have all these sort of like dynamic tools, right? When you have like the dynamic entry put in, if you have that toggled. So what happens is I can pick that center point, and then if I begin to draw, it's not doing it. There should be like a perpendicular, because I want a line that's perpendicular to this. I was doing it this morning when I was demoing this. Another thing you can do, guys, okay, fine, is you could rotate it about the midpoint, or you could rotate a copy 90 degrees. That's really weird. I just had this working. Let's make a line.
Same thing happens to me. I'm trying to use shift.
Oh wait, there was a perpendicular. Okay, so if I'm making the line, and since I need a point on that line, I grab the midpoint. I have the perpendicular, and I can just say, okay, that initial mass of it is, let's say, another 50 foot. So if I do 50 foot, and I'm starting to draw that line, and it's got the perpendicular dynamic, I'm going to get a 50-foot line that's perpendicular. Okay.
Where did you get the perpendicular from? That's a command.
If I start drawing a line, so I offset.
It just kicks in. I
offset it, and I have a point on that line, and I start the line there. As I'm drawing, if I'm close to it, it's going to snap to perpendicular. That's only if you have like the dynamic input turned on. And then I can type in a specific length, and then I could begin to sort of offset this in order to begin to establish the lines of it. And then I can begin to use that technique again, where I just kind of keep offsetting things. But it starts from a parallel line that's a certain distance, which is just kind of a logic we use. Or maybe it's a diagram line that you use. So maybe it's like maybe it's an axis that you found, and you're going to offset the axis and begin to subdivide that to find your space. That's a technique. Okay. To take a step back, if you want to draw a line in space in AutoCAD, right? There's lots of different things. So you can pick a point. So when I start the line tool, it says like specify a point. So I can click to pick a point. Now at this point, if I have dynamic input turned on, there's a type in that's the length of the line, and then I basically pick a direction. So if I'm like if I'm making it snap to 0 degrees or 90 degrees, or if I'm drawing an arbitrary point, or if I do the perpendicular like I did here, I can type in a length and I would get that. So if I hold down Shift, I can say, okay, draw me a 100-foot line. So 100 feet, and that would give me a 100-foot line from the point. Okay, and I can keep doing that. So let's draw a 90-degree line. That's like another 50-foot. So I have those two lines. So by that, I could draw the outline of something. So let's say you know what the dimensions of something are, and then you could actually begin to offset from that, because a lot of rooms are probably just built off of that. Like maybe there's a 25-foot room that shares a wall. You can begin to like pull that off of there. So by typing in the points explicitly, the length explicitly, you can begin to draw your space. The other thing is, and this is something that you have to kind of be aware of. So that's with dynamic input, and that's a new feature in AutoCAD as of maybe 2 or 3 versions ago. The way that points work, let's just go to a new file here so we're not cluttering up Doug's file. But feel free. Thank you. So there's, you guys, so there's absolute coordinates and relative coordinates. I'm going to change my units really quick, just so I've got, so I've got architectural here. Okay, if I don't do that, then it's all decimal and weird. So when I draw my line, so I have the dynamic input. You can also, see it says specify next point. You can see way down the bottom of my screen here. So if I type in something, like let's say I type in, 10, 0, right, or like 10 foot, 0. What happens is that actually makes that point, I'm going to zoom out here. That actually makes that point, so this is 0 in the x and that's 10, so it actually draws it on the coordinate. So that's the actual coordinate in space, like the latitude and longitude of 10, 0. Okay? That's almost never like what we want. I mean, if you want to start drawing from 0, 0 and you want to do that, it's like a piece of graph paper that has coordinates on it. Okay? Those are actually the absolute coordinates. So if I could even do this when it says specify first point, I can say I want to start at 0 tab 0 and then it goes to 0, 0. And then it would say like, okay, and then the next point I want is going to be at 10 foot, comma, 10 foot. And then if I draw that, so that's actually a diagonal line from 0, 0 to 10 foot, 10 foot. Okay? We almost never like do that, but I just want to show you we used to do that in CAD because absolute coordinates like make sense. Okay? Then there's relative coordinates. So if I have a point that I pick and it can be arbitrary or it could be like a point that's on, I locked up my computer. How about that? There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna pick a point. Then you can do relative coordinates. So before I just typed in coordinates, you guys saw that? Okay. So this is a point. What I can do is I can do the @ symbol. So like the @ we use for email, where you hold down Shift and press 2. And then I can type in a coordinate. So I can say the next point is going to be at 10, comma 0. That will draw a line from that point. So like imagine this is now 0, 0. So this is 10, 0 from that point. So it's the coordinate system relative to the point that I started. Okay. So does that make sense? So let's do it again here. So I'm going to draw a point. I'm going to start a line somewhere. And then I'm going to say @ So I press the @ key. And you can see the little @ in my like dynamic. It's really small up here. And then I can say 0, let's say 20 foot. And that will draw. Yeah, I did something there.
Yeah.
What's that?
The 0 would be the distance.
Oh, but I want to go up though.
Yeah, I think you put in the distance first, and then the second coordinate is the.
Oh my gosh, really? Okay, that's different.
I think so.
And then the angle would be 90 degrees. Okay. Well, I think you can do it in the type in at the bottom. So if you say specify next point, I think you can do @ 0, 20. Yeah. So if you do it in the bottom, it's like the coordinate, and you do it in the dynamic. You're right. It's the distance and then the angle. So there's lots of different ways to get a measured point in space.
So if you type it in, it's actually the XY off your point.
It's the XY, and if you don't put the @ it's the real XY. If you put the @ it's the relative XY. Okay. So and then lastly.
And that's the same as just you can also start drawing in the direction you want to go and put in a number.
Exactly. If you have the dynamic input.
Yeah.
Yep. There's different people work different ways. There's different kinds of conditions where it makes sense. I just like to know all of them because it's like whatever pops into my head,
Some accurate angular reference there.
Exactly. Okay, and so lastly, guys, I don't want to take too much. I know some of you guys know how to do this, but this last piece is something that I actually do more frequently than anything. So I would maybe start with an arbitrary kind of line, and then I would offset that to my module. So let's say a lot of my stuff is on a 50-foot kind of grid. So I could begin. Wow, scale. The scale of this is different. But let me do that again here. So I'm just going to draw a really long, like 100-foot line, let's say. Okay, so I'm going to offset that. And So I can create a couple of, so I know that there's beginnings of this, and then I'm going to draw another kind of arbitrary line. And then I say, okay, then I know that that piece, this is maybe part of my diagram or some kind of site feature, and I say, okay, that's maybe 20 foot, like off. And then I could begin to actually draw on top of this with another color, or I could go in and kind of, I could offset these like, 10 foot, and I could begin to use trim to kind of clean this up a bit so that it's actually my drawing. And then just keep working it that way. So it's kind of like if you're doing on a piece of trace paper, you draw a bunch of guidelines, and then you take your pen and you draw over that pencil, right? You're kind of doing that in CAD, but then instead of erasing it, you just trim it. Okay? Mm-hmm. So these are all techniques you can use to translate your drawings from your hand drawings to CAD. Okay? And then once you have that, let's say this is my plan, you could begin to draw a horizontal line, and then you could project, some regulating lines. Excuse me, right? Zoom here. No, zoom out. There we go. Okay, so I could just like on paper, guys. You could take and draw some regulating lines for the features that are in your plan. And I'm kind of sloppy here, but and then you can say, okay, so the height of my spaces, and several of them, let's say, is 12 foot, and then the height of some spaces is 16 foot, and this is how you can begin to kind of quickly like knock out your section. And it might take you a while, but I'm much faster at this than I am even with hand drawing, So I can quickly rough out a section of my schematic design. Using this method. That's actually more, that could be a section or that could be like an elevation. But so using those, using offset to create datum lines, and then basically making like regulating lines of it is a quick way. You could also use extend. I think you guys, so you can draw a line above it, you can draw like a perpendicular, a parallel line. You can say extend, and so you can choose the object you want to extend something to, and then that's a quick way. Just just do all of your, take all of like your vertical lines, and they just pop right up to your line, and then you can begin trimming those as well. Okay, so once you get this down, schematic design becomes really fluid, really fast. Like, especially if you already have it and you're translating it. Yeah. So hopefully that kind of helps. Any questions on the measured drawing piece of it? All right. Let's keep going here. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is layout and scale, and this is something that's different in different versions of AutoCAD, but the principles are pretty similar. Let's go back to Doug's here. So I told you guys how there's actually for the project there's actually different scales at work, right? There's a scale of the site, there's a scale of the building. And you read different things at different levels of detail, so you need different scales. So, for instance, your site scale, since it's very big, might be like 1 inch equals 200 feet, right? Your building, your schematic scale, might be 1/32 of an inch equals 1 foot. Okay, your diagrams of this might be, since they're not as much detail required. So like maybe the actual site diagram, the site plan is 200 is 1 inch to 200 feet. The diagrams might be smaller, so they might be 1 inch equals 100 feet. or 1 inch equals 400 feet. Sorry, and then the thing here, maybe your like diagrams are at 64th scale. Okay, so they'd be less detailed, smaller, but half the scale of that original drawing. Okay, but how do you do all that? Like that's the problem we have.
When you say scale, you mean paper space or model space?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. So yeah, and so model space is the space that you're working in AutoCAD, and in model space, as we've said, you want to draw everything at 1:1. And this is a really good example here. Doug's like he's drawn his site, so everything here is drawn like 1 inch equals 1 inch, 1 foot equals 1 foot. You don't mess with the scale here. The layout gives you the scale. Okay, you make a copy of this. You begin to develop the plan. You put in the thicknesses. You put in the doors. You put in the walls. You know, and then you can go in and make a detail. You know, drawing of it. But it's all to the real world scale that it would be. Paper space, like Stefan was like talking about, is what you plot, and the paper space is actually can be different views of the drawing at different of the model space at different scales. And that's going to produce the drawings that you're going to print, okay? And I'll show you. So, so right now we're in like model space here. When you're working, you want to start a new layout, and in Mac AutoCAD, there's lots of different ways to do this. Actually, go back, kind of skipped a step here. You can go in and you could click on this workspace here, and you can say create new layout. And I'll just and then you click plus to make a new page setup, and I give it a name, so I can call this my layout. And it's based on another layout. That's fine. So I say continue. I get this to come up. I'll take you through these steps here. So for this assignment, eventually it would come out on one of our 36-inch on one of our larger printers. You're not actually going to print from AutoCAD, but let's go ahead and you would actually set it to be one of those printers. That's going to establish the different kinds of paper sizes that you have available, and it's just going to help us with our layout. So even though it's not going to actually print to that, we're going to say the 36-inch coded bond. It's fine. Then you go to paper size, and you have a list of like paper types available, and that's actually based on whatever kind of printer you loaded. I'm actually not seeing the option I want, but if you have say a regular kind of printer, it's only going to give you like 8.5 by 11 sizes. If you have a large plotter, it should give me the architectural sizes. I'm not sure why it's not popping up. Maybe because I'm not online, but. Let me check. Well, if you don't, what you can do is you can go to Manage Custom Sizes, and that's what I've done actually. And you can create, you can say plus, and then you can type in 36 inches by 24 inches, and you can just make a paper size. So I did that here. And then I can go into, and I can say 36 by 24, and so that's actually that's going to be my paper size. Set your scale to be 1:1. So 1 inch or 1 foot equals 1 foot. So you're actually going to be plotting it so that what's in the plotter, what you see is actually going to be what you get. That's in the layout. Okay, so 1:1. You don't want to change the scale here. That would be if you had one drawing or something. We're going to have multiple drawings, so we want this to be 12 inches is 12 units. Plot style table, I would use the color one, because what that's going to do is when we print this, it's actually going to save this with the colors intact. We're not going to use any like line weights here. We're going to do this inside of Adobe Illustrator, so we're just going to do color for now. In the third project, we're going to do all of our stuff in AutoCAD, and it's all going to be line weighted and everything. So if you know AutoCAD, I know this isn't the way you do it, but we're going to just print these as color. We're not going to mess with line weights here. This is all going to be Illustrator.
So how'd you get that dialogue from the layout?
It's different on PC. I'll have to just bear with me here, and then we'll come back to it. So again, set it up so that you're using a big printer, so that you can use a big paper size, 36 by 24. That's in architecture D. Now it popped up. See, now why are these available? They weren't before. You could do a D size. Okay, or make a 36 by 24. It's fine. And then when you say OK, and you go to that, I'm going to do like a double click to use that layout. I get this is now a. Why can't I zoom out on this computer? This is now a 36 by 24 like virtual piece of paper. Okay, we're going to lay our stuff out here to scale, and then send this. We're going to make a PDF of this. We're going to print it as a PDF, and then open this in Illustrator. And this is going to help us lay stuff out with a given scale. Okay, so the layout view. This is paper space. It's white. It says our layout here. It doesn't say model space. Okay, this is our paper space.
How is that 1-to-1 though?
It's
It's
1-to-1 in paper space. So like if this window here is so many units in this space, it's the same number of units when it prints. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Paper space model space is one of the most confusing.
So it has nothing to do with actual units.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay. It has to do with units in paper space. It's a little weird. So right now this is a window onto our model space. And if you click on it, I'm just clicking on the window. Okay? If you go into the viewport and I scroll down here, you can look at the scale here. You guys see me on my monitor? It's like way down there. Scale. I can drop this and I can say I want this to be 1/64th scale. And that's going to zoom this in. So now this is 64th scale. Okay? And now if I double click my window, see how it kind of turns into like a little viewport, like it turns dark? I can pan around and I can arrange it so that this drawing is here. That's a 64th scale. Okay. If I went in and I changed, and if I want to get out of this, I have to double click out. Now I'm in the thing again, and I can pick the window, and I can change that scale again. So I can make it 1/28th. Can make it 1/16th. Okay, and then you have to kind of pan around again to get your thing back. But that's at 16th scale, right? That's enormous.
Yeah.
I think my paper size is actually. This might be like an 11 by 17 piece of paper. Let me edit the layout. So you can go in and edit the setup again. So I just went in, and I can in this little like 4-way thing, and I can right click the layout, and I can say edit page setup. Is it going to open up my window? There we go. This is where you change. So for some reason that seems small to me. Okay. But that's the size of the paper that's in the window. So this gives you a sense of like how it's going to look if I actually printed it out, and that fills up a lot of the page, right? And that's just a diagram. So what I want to do is actually like decrease the scale so that it's a very small diagram on the page. And I can go into standard scale, and there are some scales available, but I actually don't have anything small enough. So what I can do is in the Mac one, I can go down here into the viewport scale, and I can say edit scale list. And here I can add like new scales. So I can call this one 1 to 200. And so I can say, okay, one page, and the drawing units are inches. So that's 1 foot is 12 inches. So 200 feet would be 200 times 12, 2,400 units. So one paper unit is 2,400 units. And now that goes on my list. So when I pick this viewport, I can go to my drop down and I can say 1 to 200 and see how much smaller like that is now. Now imagine this is an 11 by this is a 36 by 24. Like that begins to feel more like, and 1 to 200 is a good scale for looking at site scale like issues. In your education, you guys are going to begin to learn to understand like what scale things want to be, right? If you have a large enough building, like you might want to talk about it at 16 scale. If you have a residential house, you might be talking about 1/8 or 1/4 scale. For details, you're talking about 1 inch equals 1 foot, or even like a 1/2 inch equals a foot. You begin to understand like what drawings want to be. Site scale might be 1 to 1, might be 1,000 to 1, might be 500 to 1, 200 to 1. So this is a good opportunity to get a sense of that. I'm going to give you some ballpark ones for today, so you're not just throwing stuff at it. Okay. I think a good scale for the diagrams is probably like 200 to 1. So, okay, you've got this like viewport, this part's going to be a little weird. So you've got this window onto your model space of the drawing, right? You can grab the corners of it, and you can change the sizes of that. You can change the size of that window. So I can make that window, right, a different size. Then I can double click, and I can pan, and I can get these diagrams in there. So these are all now at 200 to 1 scale in that window in my layout. Now, if you zoom in and out, that's going to change your scale, right? Because this thing zoomed when I changed it. So just pan, don't zoom, or you'll have to go back and change this again to the right scale to get it back. Okay, now check this out. So I've got this object that contains the model space. You can actually copy viewports. So now I have a copy of that viewport. I can blow it up, and I can move the thing. And now I can take this viewport, and I'm going to say that this one, let's make another scale. 1 to 100, 1,200 drawing units. Pick my viewport. So now this is twice the scale of the other one, and I can pan. I could do a double click. I can pan over here. Let me find. I'm gonna sort of like pretend that that's my full detail site, and I'm gonna drag this over here. And then you can actually move these too. I can say move. Move. Okay, and so now, and so I'm not in those anymore. So if I zoom, I'm zooming in and out in the paper space now, just so I can see it. I have a 1 to 100. Like let's pretend this is a full detail, like nice kind of site plan, right? And then see, this is like what Thomas was talking about. These are now half scale to that, and they're like aligned with it. Okay, so in Autocad, I'm gonna get on Doug's case here. But these aren't all quite aligned to each other. Like this one's kind of off. So in Autocad, you might create kind of a grid and then make sure that they're all kind of aligned with each other. Like get these things ready to go, and then you can pop that in.
Is it possible to? Because I couldn't get it to copy a bunch of stuff and then move it orthographically.
Should be able to. Another thing too is that you don't. It might be easier to not do it visually. So like let's finish this off, and then I can talk about that with you later, Clark.
Okay.
But so this is how you can get things to be a certain scale. And let me just take you all the way through the end here. So let's plot it. It's going to crunch for a second here, maybe a little more than a second. But we're going to plot this to a PDF. So you go down here, and this is on Mac, but you could plot it to PDF. Say save as PDF. It's going to go to my desktop, and that's going to plot this. And see, normally we would send this right to the plotter. We do the line weights in AutoCAD, but we're going to open this up in Illustrator. And the nice thing about this is that these are going to be scaled, and the layout's a certain dimension. So when I open this up in Illustrator, it's a 36 by 24 inch drawing with these things already scaled. Then you just go in and you do your line weights and stuff, and you add your labels. That's what you guys can do.
Do you always want to label your scales?
I think it's good to have a scale. I think it's good to have a scale labeled in like an unobtrusive way. So while that's loading, I want to say something though. Okay, def points is a layer that you get in AutoCAD, and you may not even know. It just you always get one whenever you have an AutoCAD. So def points is a layer that lets you basically draw elements that won't print. It's kind of like your guides layer, and these are actually on def points. Like the window border itself won't print. It just prints the stuff that's in that. Def points is also useful if you go to that layer, you make it active, and I'm gonna make it. Usually it's cyan. Doug has his as yellow. That's his role, but you can drop guidelines, for things in def points, and then use that to align your windows. So I can take that window and I can snap to it, and then I can snap it to the line, and those lines won't print. You see the little, if you go on def points, there's a little icon that says no printy. Okay? You could do so. That's a handy trick. So you can using the exercises that you guys did with Greg Snyder, like draw these really nice like tartan grids to like kind of lay out these different kinds of proportions, and then put your windows in those proportions, and then use that to scale your elements. And that's how you can really develop a really nice layout in AutoCAD before you get into Illustrator. Okay, it's a little bit easier, I think, than doing this all in Illustrator because you can align things with each other really well. You have all these really fancy snaps and like move commands. So, you know, I could go in and now this might explain some things, Clark. So I'm in this space here. So I say offset 1 inch. So that's paper space 1 inch.
Right. No,
right?
I get that now.
Now
this is an image of the model space.
This is an image of this is an image of your paper. So you can do things like say like I want like a 6-inch grid, and then you can just offset stuff 6 inches on def points. So then I can take this thing. And now if I wanted 1 inch of white space, it's very easy for me. I think it's hard to do in Illustrator.
Yeah.
This is how people lay stuff out in AutoCAD. But again, I don't think what you'd want to do is do like 4 windows for each of these things and then try to align them. I think you'd want to do that in AutoCAD and model space first. Get them all aligned to each other, like snap them all to a guideline, maybe a def point line, then pop these in to your layout. So you do all your layout stuff, guys, in this, and this is how you get your different scales. Okay? Then let's go to Illustrator. Open up.
One question real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So when you make new viewports or whatever we're calling those,
Yeah.
those windows, and you copy it,
Yeah.
you're not. So you actually are copying what's in there, and so you move that. You're not. It's in other words, if we made that again down there.
Yeah.
Are you copying the model space too? Or just
No, this is the thing is it's just like a magic. It's just a magic portal into model space. So that you can make it's not making literally a copy of it. It's just another view into that.
So
So
we can't. So if you change something in one of those diagrams, we'll change it in all of them.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's just a magic portal.
Got it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I mean, it's really a nice system because then when you update your drawing, you have the layout. You can keep the layout, but then you adjust the drawings in model space.
Right.
Yeah. That's a really good point to make, Clark. And I'm sorry I didn't make it myself. Like I think that's the power of it. So open up your PDF. Crunch, crunch. Let me zoom out here. And it may have actually plotted the. So you can go in, and so the reason why I had you guys do these things with color is because you can use the colors then, and I had you guys do hierarchy in color, is because then it's very easy to select all color and then make that a certain line weight or a line color, right? I'm trying to make things easier for you. So it makes this crappy like Autodesk product thing. You can like release the mask, and then you can delete these. Oops, not everything. Whoa. Let's ungroup those. What's that? That must have accidentally chosen the whole. Yeah. Gee whiz. Everything's got like a mask over it. Ugh.
It is double click on the word. So.
If you do that, I mean, this gets you into the isolated thing. You can do that. Select. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different, but basically this lets you open it up and get into it. There's lots of looks like there's a bunch of clipping masks for these. So just click on the outline until it goes away. Okay. And then there are these paths. You can hide them, you can delete them. This actually gave me. You can ungroup these. Or at least, man, there's lots of clipping masks on this thing. Okay. Wow. Let's see here. Okay. Is that gonna? Okay. Jeez. Basically, when it comes in, these things are kind of grouped together. So you have to go in and like ungroup, or like make sure the masks are released on them. There we go. Until eventually, oh man. Yeah, I actually didn't have this problem this morning yet. Let's see here. You could probably go in and just say select all, and then just say ungroup, and that would probably take care of a lot of this stuff. Or just delete the mask. Anyway, so you get the stuff in, and this is your layout, guys. Like, I mean, like I mean, all these kind of glitches aside, we can sort of dig into how to ungroup this stuff. But this is your layout. You could go in and you could actually like erase this path. Like you don't want that. You don't want the outline of that. But then you go in and you begin to do the work of selecting these, and like we did last time, and beginning to give them some weight. Right? Actually, you'd use the colors to do that. So you might actually make layers of these things based on the colors. So I could take all the yellow things and say select same stroke color, right? And then that might be a layer of that kind of hierarchy. And then there's a layer for the cyan, a layer for the red. So that's kind of why I wanted you guys to do that. Then it makes this like changing these a snap. Now again, they're not layered by what they are. They're layered by the like pen type. And this makes it easier because when you guys plot this for the first time, you're going to kind of hate what you see because the plotted stuff is not the same as what's on the screen. But then it's going to be so easy to adjust it because all of the grays are the same layer. All of the blacks, with a certain line weight are the same layer. And then just making that adjustment is going to be very easy. Okay. Yeah, I might go back and just fix that thing with the grouping. Like that didn't I didn't explain that very well. But so when you're just dealing with getting the stuff out of Autocad and visualizing it and laying it out in Illustrator, I think that method works pretty well. So what I want you guys to focus on for Thursday is not only kind of the measure drawing of your schematic of your schematic design, diagramming your schematic design, which I think is something that Betsy would like to see. It helps you understand your building. And then this kind of, making a nice layout, making the weights work really well when they're printed. And then Sam and I will go through on Thursday and like redline all your stuff, and we'll really give you feedback on like what to do, what works, so that the next time you guys do this for your Twin 2, this is all like you guys know exactly how to do this stuff.
I thought you said you only wanted one line weight for the plane then.
Sorry?
Or so you do want line weights then?
I do want line weights. I'm just saying that there's no there's no thickness to the schematic design. Like again, I think like what Doug is showing is about the right level. Here. So like, there's no wall thicknesses here, but there's a hierarchy. Like some things, maybe the most important space is red, or maybe you outlined it in something like that. I think there's room in the schematic design for line weight because you want to read it. You guys can talk to Betsy about exactly what that wants to be, but that's the idea. So again, I'm hoping that even for tomorrow, making a measured drawing, making some diagrams will like help you, and then maybe for like Thursday, it's just about the layout, and it's about what you present to me. So it's not like overwhelming. That's my plan, at least. Yeah.
Offhand, do you know like a good stroke for like a 1/16 drawing?
For a 1/16 drawing, I think what might help is just to try different, like go into Illustrator and make a 36-inch by 12-inch strip, and then draw all the different draw like 20 lines, set them to different weights. 20 is arbitrary. Set them to different colors, and so like grays, reds, black. Print them off on the school printer, just that one strip, so 75 cents or like whatever, and then that's your reference, right? And then you know what that is. Like, I can't just tell you like what that is. It actually varies by printer even. So if you know you're on the 36-inch bond, make a test copy for yourself. Maybe one of you guys do it, and then just share that with everybody. Just take that, pin it up in Studio.
Is that the printer we should use?
Talk to the print lab folks or somebody who works in a print lab, but I think that the 36 is probably, that's the one my students use. 36-inch bond color. You'll notice, guys, that there's a difference between the color and the black and white printer, even with the same weights and things. The color and that paper, that nice like paper, will actually give you finer line weights and a crisper drawing than the black and white, just regular printer. You can use the black and white. It's very economical. You can get a lot out of it. But it's two different things, the color printer and the black and white printer. You almost need two different settings on your. You do need two different settings on your Illustrator file, okay? Once you understand what that is, you can crank out whatever you want. You'll know that a 16th inch, a 1/16th drawing, the thickest weight is a 1 point, let's say, or the thickest is a 1/7. Yeah. So some of this is kind of trial and error. For a lot of Thursday is going to be us kind of having a discussion about what looks right, about what works. I do not expect like perfection. I know you guys are up against deadlines and stuff like that. Thursday is about feedback.
Do you want it printed or do you want it?
Printed.
Okay.
Big part of this is printing it. I haven't had you guys print anything yet, but in school, almost everything is printed for final. What's that? Printing is scary. Okay, so I want to begin to dig into that, and I want to see how this works with all of our digital stuff that we're doing. I want to have a conversation about printing. This is a tough thing. I'm concerned about giving you like this much to do, but I want to see what we can come up with. I think we need to do this so that you guys can work this way moving forward in Studio, and so that we can move on from diagrams. You guys are probably sick of 2D diagrams at this point, but I still felt like after the first project that there's work that we could do to really understand how to do these things well and get them laid out and get them scaled. Okay, we'll do this. We'll review it Thursday. So Thursday is going to be just like a review day with Sam, and then we'll get into some 3D stuff after that. Okay. There was a question. Clark had a question, and then I'll open the floor up. Clark, your question was like, okay, I got a lot of objects. How do I copy them, right?
Well, I just was selecting them and trying to array them by using the orthographic commands, and that doesn't work.
Yeah,
like,
so you'd say
it's doing guides at top and bottom, right?
Yeah. Or here, let's say copy, right? Take a base point. Yeah. Okay. And okay, so let's say let's sort of pretend that this is where it starts.
Okay.
Say copy. And let's say you got like 10,000 objects or like whatever. Okay, so the stuff we just talked about absolute coordinates, relative coordinates, or whatever, right? So I could say copy this thing, and then so the base point would be like, let's say here, and then the second point would be you could say something like copy this thing 200 feet from where it was. Is that not going to let me do that? Specify second point. Or let's say at 200. Why? Okay, what is going on here? Let's do at 200 foot 0. And that's a quick way to make and if I got the dimension right? So it's like, instead of having to, how the computer like redraws everything as you're trying to place it? Just give it a coordinate and it'll just pop over there. So you have to figure out what it is, 1,000 foot.
We can just undo.
You just undo it until you do it. I'm not used to like that dynamic input. Like that's actually, I'm an old fogey, and I'm not used to that. But so like when you do copy, specify a base point. There's probably some kind of type in when you're in this mode that lets you jump it. I do absolute and relative coordinates. So at 1,500 foot, comma 0, let's say. Would work for me, and that's actually typed in down here. I forgot that. So like at 700 foot 0. That's pretty,
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Yeah. So that everybody likes to see what they're doing, but sometimes the computer can't keep up to show you the input.
Right.
So try that. I blew through a lot of this stuff pretty fast. You have the recording, but is there anything that you guys want me to review that would help make sense?
What you said a good scale for buildings was 200 to 1?
No, for site.
For site, I'm sorry.
I'm going to give you some site. I'm going to give you some dimensions, some scales, because you guys all have the same sites and the same like scale, pieces. So I feel reasonably confident that I can give you those scales for now. We'll have a discussion about that on Thursday. But for right now, I think it's about 1 to 200. 200 to 1, 100 to 1 for the site stuff, and then I think 1/64th and 1/32nd for the building. For schematic. Okay. You CAD people are probably rolling your eyes at me. Like this is like really hacky.
Can we do it at 1/16?
You can do it whatever it wants to be. If it's good, you can do it. If you know what you're doing, like don't have to do stuff the way I do stuff. I'm just trying to like cover a lot of material in a short amount of time, and so it's kind of hacky. And feel free to, you know, as long as it turns out well, that's the goal.
Can you just repeat the assignment again?
The assignment's going to be completely typed up on Moodle, but I can tell you there's schematic design drawing measured. I think a section, because you guys are doing the multiple story thing, right? At a scale, which I believe is going to be 32nd. Might be 16th if you have a smaller building, right? If you have more compressed. Your site diagrams and a site drawing. So the site drawing is more detailed, it's larger scale. Your site diagrams are half that scale. Those are the ones you guys did for me this weekend. So that's your kind of like the mass of your schematic design on the site diagrammed. Then you take your schematic stuff and you diagram those at half the scale that the building's at. Okay, so those diagrams. Then a layout for that stuff, and that'll be in Illustrator, printed. Illustrator is just for line weights. Sparing line weights, right? Like figure out how many, maybe you have 3 or 4. Maybe you have 1 red line and 3 black, you know, and that's all you use for the whole thing. Like, what's the hierarchy of those drawings? Like, it's like the idea of any set of architectural drawings, if you have a layout, is that they all came from the same set of pens, right? Like, you have a bunch of microns on your desk, and it's like, you know, if I'm Rachel or whatever, I have 4 pens. I did all the drawings in 4 pens, okay? On the computer, it's easy to make up a bunch of different weights and stuff. You want that idea that it came from the set of 4 pens, or 5 pens, or 6 pens, okay? So that, and I think you want to print it once before so that you understand what it looks like, and then adjust it, and then print it again for us, okay? I tell my students this in second year all the time. The first time you print it, it's not going to be right. You got to do it twice, okay? I will not make you guys print stuff very often. I know it gets expensive. I know you guys like money's a thing, but it's so vital to do it at least once or twice to know what you're getting into. Budget time when you plot this stuff. You never know what the line's going to be like at the plot place, if they're going to be loading paper or like whatever. You don't want to be plotting this at like 1:30 for the first time. Okay? Again, my second years are notorious procrastinators. They're the ones who get in your way at 2 o'clock. I apologize. So just don't be like that. If you could get it, if you can try to do it, like my thing would be, if you can get it all done, you know, like mid-morning, and then just send it upstairs, go get a sandwich, and come back at noon. You know, that's fine. Do the best you can. We're gonna look at this on Thursday, and give you guys feedback. And the best thing you could do is try to make this exactly the stuff you use for Betsy. Don't like double dip. Okay.
Are we going black, gray, and red?
That's what I'd like to see, is black, gray, and red. When you're out of my class, you can use as much color as many colors as you want, but you got to get some discipline in how you like use these things. And look at really good architectural diagrams; they're almost all black and white. You don't even get red, you know. That's arbitrary, but I think it makes you more morally disciplined with this stuff. Does the layout stuff make sense? Is that clear? That is the most confusing thing when I learned CAD. The paper space, model space. Yeah, oh yeah, we're still. It's still recording. Like, yeah.
I mean, it made sense. I know I couldn't do it right now. I'd have to go.
Yeah. You got to go back.
And you didn't say how. And I guess I can ask a PC person how we get to the initial.
The PC piece of it, the logic is the same, but the interface is different. And I honestly confess, with the new AutoCAD, I don't know how to do it now. Like, I used to know how to do it, and they just changed on me. So I'm going to learn that tonight, and but in the meantime, talk to another student. You guys and some of the people in the class know how to do it. So talk to them if you're a PC user. I will get more educated about that.
I can do a tutorial in class.
What's that?
I can do a tutorial.
That would be excellent. That would be fantastic. And so I think it's a good skill to have. We're going to cover it much more extensively when we do our actual drawings for your building. Betsy has you guys doing like a full set of like design development drawings in March. We're going to do those in CAD, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. So we'll get to layout. If you got, again, the people who know CAD who think this is awful, we're actually going to cover the real way to do a layout in CAD to do a full set. But for now, this will get it out. Okay. Cool. Okay. Any more questions today?
36 by 24?
Yeah. I just think it's a good size. It's arbitrary. Again, it's 2 foot out of the 36 printer. It's like $3.50 or something like that. I think so. But let me know. Do the best you can. Let's see what you can get. But I think this is going to solve a lot of problems we've had so far. If you have any questions between now and then, let me know. Betsy's aware. Like, I've talked to her about this, so hopefully this isn't going to make things more complicated for you. All right. I'll be around for the next, in my office for a while too if you guys want to ask me something. Okay. Thanks.